There was a pottery class experiment in the 1970s where students were split into two groups. Group A was asked to create the most perfect pot by the end of the semester. And so that group would be graded by the quality of that pot. And then Group B was asked to create as many pots as they could by the end of that time. So they would be graded by the volume and the quantity of the pots. By surprise, it was not Group A who made the most perfect pot, but it was Group B. And it was not because of the talent students had, but because they simply made more pots, they learned a lot quicker, and they just ended up making the best pots. I do think of this experiment a lot. As hard as it is for me to admit, I've always been part of Group A, not so much of Group B. And I really envy people who have this vision and this way of operating life of Group B, of not being afraid of making mistakes and just getting in it, getting the repetitions in, getting the volume in, and just making more pots so they can keep learning. And instead, I just, obsess over making one thing, make it really perfect, dialed in. But in reality, I'm missing out on putting in more repetitions and getting that visceral learning. It is something I really want to focus on the rest of this year and onwards to really start operating more as Group B of that class and just, putting out more content, putting in more repetitions, talking to more people, putting in more clients, whatever that looks like to you as well. It's just the idea of the more you do stuff while being conscious, the better you'll get at it. I think this is a key point as well in this repetition and this volume of doing things. You do one repetition and you don't blindly go and start doing the second repetition. You probably want to take a look back at the first repetition you did, get a little bit of feedback, and at least apply something to the second repetition. And I think the bigger the gap is in terms of that learning and that difference that you make between the first one and the second one, that compounded over time, the better you'll get. And the quicker and the shorter the time period happens between first and second repetition, it's logical that the better you'll get and the quicker you'll get there as well. I think this is something I really want to focus on the rest of this year and onwards, is to really shorten the time I take between first and second repetition, third, fourth, fifth, and always really consciously looking back at, what do I apply from last time? I want to at least get one or two bullet points of feedback and then apply them over the next time. And this for me applies to, YouTube videos, content, workshops, or interactive sessions with clients, meetings, whatever that looks like to you as well. I think one of the biggest problems we have perfectionists is this concept of fake productivity. And this is something I've caught myself getting into over and over again. You see, I recently started working on getting back to my content and, helping two founders install their personal brand system. And there's this concept of fake productivity. And I think of it as this way of making a lot of apparent or visual stuff that seems productive. Client emails, client communications, documents, and deliverables that are bloated with information, and it looks like they're great documents with lots of info and lots of research behind them. But usually in reality, a lot of it is just, blind work that where is this taking us? Like, how impactful is the work or the task that I am doing towards the business? How much is helping the project, this goal, or this business going forward? And I started to think of this a lot. And I think I usually fall victim of that too much. You see, I recently caught myself building these AI projects, content systems, templates, frameworks for stuff I have not even made once. I've started making systems for building YouTube video thumbnails when I have not even made 5 YouTube thumbnails yet. I started wondering what's the next lead magnet and the next flow of emails for my newsletter when I'm not even posting that much content that, a newsletter makes sense right now. So I'm always constantly being that Group A because I have the vision and I understand and I can see all the possibilities and all the stuff that is happening and all the stuff that is, going on. But in reality, The real thing that I need is just volume and repetition and just executing the stuff that is gonna bring my business forward and bring the project, the goal forward in the most impactful way. Now, I will also say that I've been quite struggling with lots of limiting beliefs. And going back to the fake productivity thing, is that, I've recently believed, I cannot put that piece of content out there until I have the brand guidelines, or I cannot record that YouTube video because I still don't know or do not have that framework for writing scripts. I cannot edit that video because I still don't have, the color grading locked in, the brand system with the titles, the fonts, the colors locked in. Again, it comes back to the pottery class. I keep trying to make the perfect pot when in reality, what I need to do is just make the pot. So I want to start thinking of it as trying to deliver stuff at 70, 80%, call it a day, and look back at it and let's see what's one thing or two minor things that I can improve on the next one so that I can keep it going. I was asking myself the other day this question of what would I tell myself 6 months ago right now that I think would make a good impact on my life and would allow me to get a lot more progress done. And I think of it as, right now I'm focusing on content. And so the one thing I would tell myself would be to just post content. I would tell myself to go and record and commit to recording one weekly long form YouTube video. Because I think this would allow me to learn a lot more about communication, pushing through that uncomfort zone of talking to the camera, speaking in front of the lens, understanding a lot more about scripting. And if I look back at it, 6 months ago, that's an average of 24 weeks. If I did one YouTube video weekly, I would have 24 more videos on my YouTube channel. That is 24 more repetitions than I have right now, because it's like one first, second video that I'm doing right now. Imagine the amount of progress I would have already made in just 6 months, but I just didn't. So now I'm 24 videos away from that. So this is the one thing I would tell myself, commit to it. It goes back to the resistance, those limiting beliefs, what I like to call it, the gear limitation syndrome that I've also had. I will shoot it when I have that wide angle lens so that I can shoot this. I will shoot that whenever I have a better microphone so that my voice sounds good. I will start editing and adding on titles whenever I have the brand guidelines locked in. But in reality, it's just like start today, because the sooner you start, the sooner you'll get repetition, the sooner you will learn. And I really do think that one of the most common traits of people who are successful in whatever they think of success in their own terms are those people who commit, who are consistent, and who are part of that group B on that pottery class. Not the perfectionists, but the pros, the ones who show up every day and the ones who actually get the things done, even if it's at 80%, but they will get the most amount of learning and the better outputs in the long run. Now, the question I want to leave you with is, what's the thing that you're avoiding right now that if you did it, your life would be significantly better? It can be in your work, in your relationship, in a project that you're doing. What are you avoiding that if you did it, you would make a lot more progress and everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Go make it, and I'll see you in the next one.